Welcome to the Department of Marine Resources Vibrio training program, presented by the Bureau of Public Health and Aquaculture. The Department of Marine Resources Bureau of Public Health and Aquaculture is tasked with protecting the public from the Vibrio bacteria found in shellfish. To ensure public safety and confidence in the shellfish resources, certain requirements are expected of harvesters and dealers to prevent public exposure. This training is required for anyone who harvests oysters or hard clams from the identified Vibrio control areas, and anyone who purchases oysters or hard clams directly from harvesters whose product comes from the Vibrio control areas. Let's start to answer some of the questions you might have about Vibrio bacteria and Vibrio control regulations. Why does the Department of Marine Resources have Vibrio control areas and special training requirements for oysters and hard clams? Oysters and hard clams are bivalve shellfish, like clams and mussels, and bivalve shellfish are filter feeders. Bivalve shellfish strain food particles out of the water they live in, so, when people consume them, they eat what the shellfish ate. If the shellfish ate harmful bacteria, it can cause a health risk for the humans that eat them. The risk is increased for oysters and hard clams specifically because people often consume these species raw, bypassing the protective step of cooking, which can reduce or eliminate the risk of bacterial illness. Are Vibrio bacteria harmful? Yes, although there are many species of Vibrio, several species can cause human illness through the infection of an existing open cut exposed to seawater or through consumption of contaminated shellfish, causing a condition called vibriosis. Maine has documented illnesses related to both wound infections and vibriosis in recent years. Vibrio bacteria grow in warm waters where there is often a mixing of fresh and salt water. Think the upper parts of an estuary or river system. The water doesn't have to be extremely warm to host Vibrio. Some species thrive at water temperatures around 65 degrees Fahrenheit, which is common in the shallow marine waters of Maine during the summer months. Harvesters can't completely prevent Vibrio bacteria from being present in oysters and hard clams since it is relatively common in the marine environment. But, by controlling the temperature after harvest, they can reduce the risk of the bacteria growing inside the shellfish to levels that will potentially make someone sick. The best way to control Vibrio is to stop the growth of the bacteria inside the shellfish after harvest. How can this be done? Cooling the oysters and hard clams to less than 50 degrees Fahrenheit as quickly as possible will stop the growth of Vibrio bacteria and reduce the likelihood of illness. Because bivalve shellfish stop feeding and purging when they are out of the water, any bacteria that are in them at the time of harvest can multiply inside the oysters and hard clams if they are exposed to warm temperatures for extended periods. This is referred to as time and temperature abuse. At an air temperature of 90 degrees Fahrenheit, it only takes an hour for Vibrio bacteria numbers to double inside of shellfish sitting out of the water, such as on a dock or in the back of a truck. Research shows that Vibrio bacteria do not multiply at 50 degrees Fahrenheit, so the quicker the shellfish reach that temperature after harvest, the safer they are for consumers. Preventing bacteria growth inside the shellfish is the key to safety. Preventing bacterial growth in the first place is critical because the bacteria don't easily die off within the shellfish once they are present. So, for example, if oysters or hard clams were exposed for 1 hour at 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the Vibrio bacteria inside those oysters would double. Refrigerating the oysters or hard clams will not decrease the Vibrio bacteria load that already grew during that hour, but it will prevent further growth. This example shows the importance of cooling product as quickly as possible. One of the best ways to cool shellfish quickly is by making an ice slurry with approved area waters and ice from a potable water source. Once shellfish are rapidly cooled in the ice slurry for several minutes, they can be moved to coolers with ice packs to keep them cold. This is an efficient way of cooling shellfish to 50 degrees Fahrenheit quickly and then keeping them cold. The time shellfish are required to be in the ice slurry depends on the size of the container and the number of shellfish you are trying to cool. If you are new to using an ice slurry for rapid cooling, try some different methods and see what works best. You can use a simple food thermometer to verify the shellfish have reached 50 degrees Fahrenheit. When purchasing a thermometer, be sure it has a range that goes below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. A common way to make an ice slurry is to use a bag of ice, mixed with approved area water, to create a quick and efficient way to cool product quickly. Outside of harvesting, shellfish can also accumulate bacterial loads after being exposed to higher temperatures for prolonged periods of time during activities such as culling, sorting, and defouling. Aquaculturists can decrease Vibrio bacteria after these types of activities by resubmerging the shellfish on their lease or limited-purpose aquaculture site. Resubmergence is an activity only aquaculturists can engage in as part of their aquaculture operations and is permitted exclusively on their lease or licensed sites. Required resubmergence times are as follows. If shellfish are exposed for more than 2 hours but less than 12 hours, they must be resubmerged for 24 hours. If shellfish are exposed for longer than 12 hours, they must be resubmerged for 7 days. It is required that aquaculturists track lots of shellfish that are resubmerged and provide those records for inspection by DMR on request. Keep in mind that the shellfish need to be able to open their shells to feed and purge once they are resubmerged, so don't overcrowd them in bags or racks. It is a good idea to look and see that the shellfish are open and feeding after resubmergence. Where are Vibrio control measures in effect? The Vibrio control areas are defined in DMR Regulations Chapter 115 and include all state waters for American and European oysters. For hard clams, the only area under Vibrio control is the Upper New Meadows River north of the Bath/State Road Bridge, an area known as the New Meadows Lakes. The regulations in Chapter 115 requiring special handling for oysters and hard clams are in effect from June 1 through October 15. This timeframe incorporates the warmest months of the summer and lasts into the fall when water temperatures are still elevated. Outside of the Vibrio control season, the special Vibrio regulations are not in effect. What are some of the special handling requirements for oysters and hard clams? 1. Harvesters must shade product immediately after harvest. 2. There are no sales allowed directly from a harvester's home during the Vibrio control months. 3. Product must reach the dealer within 2 hours from the start of harvest time, or it must be immediately iced after harvest and maintained on ice until delivery. 4. Dealers must cool product to 50 degrees Fahrenheit within 3 hours of receipt, and product may not be reshipped before it reaches 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It is important to remember that reducing the risk of Vibrio illness continues beyond the harvesters. Primary dealers, including enhanced retail license holders, are the first to buy directly from the harvester, and they play an important role in keeping shellfish safe. Primary dealers must verify that they receive product on ice or within 2 hours of harvest and record this information in their hazard analysis and critical control point or HACCP records. Primary dealers that receive product after 2 hours from harvest and without ice must destroy the shellfish. Wet storage, which is exclusively a dealer activity, is not an option for Vibrio control, as it requires the dealer to buy adulterated product, meaning product that were exposed for longer than 2 hours or not properly iced. This product is assumed to have elevated levels of bacteria and is therefore not fit for human consumption. Primary dealers must also verify in their hazard analysis and critical control point records that they cool product to 50 degrees Fahrenheit within 3 hours or have an approved cooling study that proves their method accomplishes this consistently. If you are interested in developing a cooling study, talk to your DMR shellfish inspector. Primary dealers must also verify that product is 50 degrees Fahrenheit or less before it is reshipped, so planning a few days ahead for orders is a good idea. Minimizing the risk of Vibrio infections in consumers relies on cooling oysters and hard clams rapidly to 50 degrees Fahrenheit and keeping them cold throughout the chain of distribution. This prevents the growth of Vibrio bacterial and reduces the likelihood of illnesses. You have completed the Vibrio training video. Please continue the certification process by taking the Vibrio quiz. Remember, you also need to purchase the relevant current year's state license, shellfish harvest, aquaculture, wholesale dealer, or enhanced retail, to activate your Vibrio permit. The Department of Marine Resources is always available to answer questions and help industry members comply with regulations. Please reach out to the Department of Marine Resources Bureau of Public Health and Aquaculture if you have questions or concerns. DM our Public Health Div at maine.gov or 207-633-9515.